Good evening. It is a Sunday evening. It is bye week. That can mean only one thing. Time for a special guest to join us and time for a bit of a Colts catch up. Joining me today on the show is a good friend of the show who, if you are a Colts fan and you haven't been living under a rock, you know who this guy is. Um, some would say a diehard fan, a super fan. He does, I'd say, very good electric chats. He talks with everyone about the Colts. Joining me is Colts fan Cole. How's it going?
Hey, Harrison. Thank you so much for having me back. Glad I didn't drop the ball the first time I was on enough to be honored to come back on, but I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it is good to have you back on. Obviously, for those who don't know, or for those who are watching this the first time, I know your content. We've talked a few times on post game shows, but do you just want to talk a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, no, yeah. Thank you again for having me on. I do Twitter Spaces, X Spaces, live kind of two-way radio. Got the inspiration. An Indiana Hoosier football fan grad, so you'll see we're in the college football playoff. Finally, who'd have thought? Crazy time. But a lot of the content I follow from there, those guys started doing halftime and post-game Twitter Spaces. And I was like, that's a great idea. Something a little unique, too. I didn't really see in the Colts sphere. And I grew up on sports talk radio. I know a lot of us did, like hearing what all the Yahoo caller-inners. And it's like, man, and people always ask me, they're like, why do you want more people to call in? I'm like, well, it's something a little unique, spice it up. Like, get takes that you weren't necessarily thinking about. So I do that every halftime post game Wednesday at 8:30. And then, any sort of video. My upbringing of Colts content was just like see Colts, tweet Colts. So anything that comes to mind, anything cool, I just try and put it out there. Was able to break, I think, one or two small pieces of news. Shout out to Clay Fields, the third being acquired to the training camp roster. So that's hey, you got to start somewhere, and I'm glad I've gotten this following, and it's brought me to meet great people like you, and a lot of people that come on and chat. So yeah, feel free to join. I know you have too, and it's awesome to talk to Colts fans with every single viewpoint. I might yell at you a little bit, but we're all fans of the same team at the end of the day.
Yeah, we're one big happy family. No, it's great. It's great when you have more people on because you have differences of opinions. That's what you should have. If everyone agreed, then there's just no point. But no, for those who haven't joined in with Cole on X, as it's now called, I keep wanting to say Twitter, but on X and his spaces, fully recommend it. So let's talk about you and the Colts. Do you have, so for us in soccer, it works different. A season ticket will get you into every game, every home game. For the Colts, are you a season ticket holder, and how does that work?
I am. It's very easy, surprisingly. Like I hear, fans abroad, a little bit of a different process. Other teams too, you kind of have to be in the priority waiver. So, fortunately for me, unfortunately for the Colts, and I guess unfortunately for me in the past years, but there were a lot of seats available after the 2022 year. I actually confirmed my season tickets. I was in the process of buying them before, but then Jeff Saturday got the job, so I'm always like, well, I am a diehard fan because I bought season tickets the day that Jeff Saturday was announced as head coach. So got those. Yeah, was able to buy them outright. The first few years, you'll probably sit up, 400, 600s, depending on where you are. And now I'm in a sweet south end zone location. So I'll definitely tweet some pics about every game from where I'm sitting. But like the overhang in the 300s level, it's a little high up, so where you can see the whole field, and it's that nice 11 on 11 view. So they have good perks too. Like, again, grateful to go to the Frankfurt, Germany game last year. They had a first offering to season ticket holders from the Colts side, and you get some gifts, discounts, but highly recommend too. And really, if you're going to go to even more than like 3 or 4 games, it's worth it to just try and hand some off to your friends, family, sell them, but only to Colts fans, please, because the last few games I have not had the best time with opponent fans. They really took over Lucas Oil. We got to get back in our winning ways, and that'll take care of itself, though.
Yeah, I do want to talk a little bit about that later with someone who is live on the ground. But let's get into the Colts in this season. For me, this season, as much in the back of my head, I was saying, let's win the Super Bowl. It was about progression. It was about seeing Shane Steichen add layers to his head coaching gig and, adding a few more tricks, learning from last year's mistakes. It was about seeing Anthony Richardson add layers to his game. Can he settle down and become the quarterback we all hope he can become, and etc. For you, has this season panned out the way you wanted it to, apart from we obviously all set out to win the Super Bowl?
I mean, if you were telling me we're in the playoff race, headed into the bye week, I would probably be like, yeah, that sounds right. I think the way we got here is crazy. We'll get into specifics on that, I'm sure, but I guess season as a whole, barring the Richardson stuff, let's set that aside for its own topic more likely. But, I think how the teams played around the quarterback position has been pretty expected, I would say. The defense, not looking good right away was probably the biggest, like, oh, what's going on? They kind of lock in, and then it's like every other game, there's, we play good enough to either win close or, stay in it until the end. But there's obviously key pieces, skill position guys. The line was expected to look good. They look good. Just the pass catchers need to be better. I don't think anybody was thinking we'd be, like the Dolphins receiving core or anything like that, but we'd be in like a better echelon than we are now. Tight ends non-existent. I think that was pretty expected too, honestly. Maybe we, hyped it. And then defensively too, D-line was solid. Even when Buckner went out, the depth is there to prove it. Corners, DBs, better than expected for sure. And then linebacker group, maybe a half step back. Special teams did end up rallying, mostly Matt Gay, Rigoberto having a rough week one. And then since then, consistent enough to not have the Spencer Schrader calls that came early in the season.
Yeah. Be fair to say up and down this season's been right. And I suppose my word for it is there seems to be just a complete lack of consistency throughout the franchise at all levels. So let's start with, like you said, the main man, Anthony Richardson. He was meant to be, or is gonna be, the next Andrew Luck, right? That's who we want him to be. The talent's obviously there with this kid. No one is doubting this kid's talent. Let's talk about the nasty stuff first. So the benching, the tap out game, which was completely blown out of proportion, if you ask me. But you're there, you're in, you're watching this guy every week. Do you think that was the right call by Shane Steichen?
Well, I don't think it was Shane Steichen's call. Honestly, I think he had a say. My best guess is, although people we trust, former writers, The Athletic, Kiefer, he was adamant, and he's, a pretty hard truth teller. That Irsay didn't have a hand. I personally think it was a culmination of behind the scenes measurables to like a Luck or Manning, that yes, Anthony's there every day. Yes, Anthony's, on time. He's doing it. But then they look at the iPad metrics or whatever, and it's like, well, he's not really doing the self-study that Ellinger's doing, or, some of these other guys. I don't know if Flacco was doing it either, to be fair. But the time, the extras that you can get away with not doing if you're Jonathan Taylor, have that next level ability. You're a running back. The position is kind of more of read and react. If you're, other players on the team, but if you're the quarterback, if you're leading 53 grown veteran men, we have a very veteran group. And Anthony had to elevate what's already there, because it's a solid group. Like, over 50% of teams, I think, would take our roster instead of their own. Maybe that's a little lower. That can be debated. But, the core of veterans is there and has been successful. So to see the guy, the franchise, maybe not do everything he possibly can to improve, I think it was a meeting of the minds of Ballard, Irsay, Steichen. Final call, who initiated it? I think the initial idea came from the top. When you're the head coach, you're like, well, we got to do it. The biggest thing was, in hindsight, I went nuclear for the benching, obviously. I think it was a terrible idea. In hindsight, could have been a good thing. Obviously the Jets game was great. Detroit game sucked, but go figure. And then the Patriots game-winning drives, could have been a good thing. So in terms of how we made it to that decision, questionable at best, but the result, hey, it was there. And I do think Steichen was the one to end up putting him back in the game, though. I think that was fully his call.
Yeah, I probably should have clarified when I should have said front office rather than Steichen. I didn't have an exclusive.
Hey, it was wild times. But, who knows even too.
But no, and I think, we come from different backgrounds. I grew up watching a lot of soccer, and it was soccer or nothing. And even calling now soccer, and I can hear my dad turning what's he saying? But so I just look at development slightly different, I would say, to how an American fan would look at development to their players, because different cultures. But for me, I think it's okay to say he made the mistake of tapping out. I hate the word tap out. He made the mistake, right? For me, Shane Steichen, just call a timeout there. That way you can save your quarterback the whole embarrassment. I don't think he needed to be benched. Just give him a scolding in the office in front of the guys. Do you know what I mean? But we say, that's in the past now. But as you said, he seems to have come back from this benching like a bit of a chip on his shoulder. No, I am going to do this. I am going to do that. I am going to do the extra film. I am going to come to and he's young, right? He's 22.
Mm-hmm.
Who wasn't an obnoxious arsehole at 22? I know I was. It takes a bit of grounding sometimes to get you back down to reality.
Yeah, and it's, you don't want to give excuses, because these guys will make more money than we'll ever see in our lifetimes. But to give an excuse of him being young, off the shoulder surgery, his whole offseason was solely to get his shoulder ready. Going through, camp, getting back acclimated with that, has a kid, and is expected to elevate everyone. I think the key word here is elevate. It's not your rookie year anymore. You can't get away with just trying to, doggy paddle your way. It's a wake up and prove yourself business a year and a half into your tenure. Yes, at that point, after the I have the schedule here. After the Steelers game, it was like his 10th game or whatever, and then he unfortunately got hurt got hurt there and ended up coming back. But even if you have that raw number of games, we're still a season and a half into his tenure. That can't be, reversed, or we can't ask for more time. So if he didn't prove himself against the Jets and the Patriots, Lions, again, tough team there, it's way more than Richardson. It is Ballard. It is, Irsay having to make hard decisions, and, times where hopefully he's healthy and all's good there, but he's not going through the easiest stuff medically. And Steichen too is a good coach, but you used all of your media, player, locker room capital saying Joe Flacco was going to be a winning quarterback and start the rest of the season, and then said it the week before the Jets game too.
Yeah,
that he was starting the rest or that week, that Joe's the quarterback on that Monday, to reverse yourself on the Wednesday decision. Again, PR wise, it could have been handled completely differently. But too, I think no matter how they said it at the initial benching press conference for Anthony, there was going to be stones thrown, myself included, hand up. I'm not going to act like if Steichen was like, Anthony needs to mature, because we were hearing as soon as early October from Ballard, October 3rd, that Anthony needs to play to be better. And then when you say that that's all of a sudden not the case, you're lying to our faces, and you had to tell us the truth. And if the truth really was that he's a good quarterback, he's a good guy, he's coming in on time, doing what he needs to do, but he's not elevating the team is the key word I think that could have been said in all this to quash some of the noise. But again, there was always going to be haters. There was always going to be a bad, talking point in the national media. But, all roads lead to the bye week, and here we are with a chance to beat Denver and really get in the playoffs.
Yeah. So before we move on, just a couple of comments from Mikey here. Mikey is a long-time viewer of the show, and it's nice to have him on. And for those watching, like and subscribe. Go and check Cole out on Twitter and notify Twitter. Follow him on Twitter. That's the one, and you'll have access to his spaces he does after the game. Mikey saying, evening, gents. I said with AR there was going to be growing pains and early expectations should have been tapered. I fully agree with Mikey, but I'm a ride high guy. I like to ride. I see Sam Early make one pass in summer, and that's it. We're going to the Super Bowl. But yeah, no, I do agree, and 100% in regards to him needing to play. Yeah, I'm not going to dedicate too much time to this because we could spend hours talking about this. I mean, it wouldn't be the Colts if there wasn't a mid-season meltdown, right? But so he needs to play to get better, is what most people I would think were saying. And I know there was a little bit of talk about, are we protecting him from, who was it at the time, the Ravens? I can't remember. He was protecting him from the two defenses we were going up against.
Oh yeah, this season, yeah, it would have been after the Dolphins, or Minnesota and Buffalo.
Minnesota, yeah. That's it. Yeah. So, but like I said, I don't really buy into that. I think he made a mistake. He got his punishment. It's done. I've got my next question here for you. I just lost it. 1 second. There we go. Yeah, so we go into the game next week. The man in Derby, the man in mid-off, two teams that are up and down and fighting over the rights to own Peyton Manning for one more year. And the thing that scares me about this game, and the thing that has scared me all season, Cole, is Gus Bradley and his defense. To me, it seems like he's lost the locker room. He can't seem to. I feel like he's relying on individual excellence rather than good scheme, good coaching, good discipline, etc.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I think the continuity will still be there. Like if we're in the playoffs, like if we're talking big picture, we make the playoffs, everyone's safe. Like it's a overachieving year, like you said. What was our over under win total? Like 8 or something.
Yeah.
I took us higher. And like you said, beginning of the season, we see something from AR. We're all good. Yeah, I'm a fan. I'm Colts fan, Cole. I'm not Cole, experienced journalist. I'm not Cole, hold Powers feet to the fire, political Cole. I'm Colts fan, Cole. I want us to succeed. I think we're going to succeed. So to see the ups and downs headed into this from the defense, again, I go back to Anthony Richardson because everything revolves around Anthony Richardson. But the defense, you could be cast off early as, hey, we thought we'd have a better run, fit from these guys, especially like our only free agent signing besides Joe Flacco being Raekwon Davis. Big. I thought we were going to stuff the trenches immediately. And then, the first few weeks, a historically bad start in terms of allowing rush offense against us. And then we had some, good games after that. Obviously, Jacksonville was terrible, but Pittsburgh we beat. Justin Fields had the run game, but, he did throw for 300 on us. So it's all about that quote unquote bend but don't break type stuff. Had a good stretch in the middle of games. And then lately it's come down to Anthony Richardson to bail the defense out because we deserve to lose the Patriots and Jets game for how our defense just absolutely, did nothing and then had a stop or two at the end and Anthony bailed us out. So it's very cardiac Colts. Seen that term floated around, but Bradley, I hate to say it. If we make the playoffs, he's probably safe. Almost definitely safe, I would say. And if we win even 2 games, like I think he'll be here because him and Steichen were together with the Chargers for a little bit. That comfortability. I'm not exactly sure the, responsibility Bradley has, but remember, albeit not a good one, Gus Bradley was a head coach before Shane Steichen, new head coach. The newness labor will wear off after this season. So maybe that, but how much is Gus actually doing like behind the scenes to help Shane with like the head coach kind of administration type stuff? So Steichen can spend more time with Anthony, they install and all that. But when I see Kwity Paye or Latu dropping back in coverage, I want to throw my phone through the television. Like, it is the worst thing possible. What was it, like a 3rd and 12 last week? And Kwity Paye just turns and like the wide receiver just does one little shimmy shake and he's right open on a comeback route. And it's like right at 12 yards. And I'm just like, I know our linebackers can't overly cover either, but we can't drop our defensive end in coverage. He blitzed DJ Speed, dropped Kwity Paye, and an easy completion. The quarterback didn't even look to another option because he just saw Kwity Paye dropping back. So I can't believe the scheme. I thought it would get better. We have been blitzing more. I think Charlie Partridge has helped. The D-line coach we got from Pitt. But man, I don't think it's sustainable to win a Super Bowl, if I'm completely honest, but I don't know. I hope I'm wrong.
Could be the worst defense to win a Super Bowl, I suppose. No, I mean, like you say, watching Latu and Kwity Paye drop back into coverage, we have a group chat and I was going absolutely ballistic that your premium pass rushers who you've drafted, who you spending first round pick on, are dropping back into coverage. Mental. But let's talk a little bit about the defense and our linebacking core. I want to say feel free to jump in because obviously you being there week and watching these games live, you see a whole different picture to me. But over the years, I feel like this linebacking core has been neglected, maybe a strong word, but so we look from Shaquille Leonard in 2018, if I'm getting my years right, and Anthony Walker, then to Leonard and Bobby Okereke, and then EJ Speed and Zaire Franklin. I'm not saying these guys are scrubs by any means. They'd certainly make me look silly on a playing field of the NFL. But it just feels like because Gus Bradley doesn't defend the middle of the field, he seems to give everything up in the middle. He's happy to. We've not gone and spent money. We've not give up a big draft pick. We've not been aggressive in that area.
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake in all the names you listed was paying. Well, you had to pay Shaq. You did have to pay Shaq because he was the All-Pro. Who would have known injuries happen in the NFL? Yeah. It just sucks. If you are Chris Ballard and you are not going to get an external free agent and you do not throw around money and you do not think about big trades, why do you let your best defensive player, when Shaq was injured, Bobby Okereke, walk? And you convinced successfully, and I'm sick about it. I'm sick about playing into it because I thought, at that point it would have been only year 5 or 6 and he still's the same. But letting your best defensive playmaker in Bobby Okereke leave and say it's the cost savings, like we're going to, spend money elsewhere. And then you don't spend money for the 2-3 years and he's gone at any position. So that was the biggest blunder. And I'm not just saying that because Bobby Okereke is an Eagle Scout and I'm an Eagle Scout. And it was one of the UK's greatest exports to the United States. Shout out Lord Baden-Powell. But Ernest Thompson-Seton too, scout knowledge. It's, one of those things. And I get the noise of people being shitty that they have a podcast, EJ and Zaire. And, it is a bad look. I wish they would only do it after wins. I think that would be a fair compromise, but plenty of players have podcasts. Like I saw Deebo Samuel has one. You never really hear about it. It's just kind of in our own little sphere. And we think that them talking on a Monday is time they could be watching film and really gaining from it. When in reality, like, it's on Chris Ballard for who we built. And if you compare what I'm talking about now to last time I was on, where it was more cherries and rainbows, because I thought we would go into last offseason and be able to acquire a bunch of guys. And Anthony Richardson would look good coming off of a 9-win, team led by a backup quarterback, Gardner Minshew. Then yeah, I'm frustrated because we didn't do anything overly to improve except for what? Try and go after Danielle Hunter, who we lost out by a few $1 million or whatever. It's like, okay, fine. Snead, although dodged a bullet there, Snead is hurt. Would have been an albatross of a contract. Shout out the Tennessee Titans. That whole debacle, I wanted him. I just wanted the big move. And then we see the Giants. I think it was like on Roku or whatever, the clip, trying to trade up supposedly for either Rome or Neighbors. And that didn't happen. So if you're not going to make the big move and save money to make, some last finishing pieces or fill the holes you need going into the season, then why didn't you pay Bobby Okereke? So again, I'm still, that's one I keeps me up at night for not defending my boy Bobby enough. I was sad to see him leave, but I wasn't clamoring for him to have the tens of millions of dollars in contract, because I thought we'd move around the money and the linebacking core was solid enough. Ballard could pick up the late guys, but it's not true. When you get a good one, you got to keep it in house, and usually Ballard does that, but apparently that price tag was too high for whatever reason.
Yeah, when I was talking with Nathan, my co-host, I simplified Ballard's tenure down to no risk, no reward. He's taking no risk with anything, but through that, as Colts fans, we're suffering because we're in this constant cycle of just mediocreness. Is probably the nice way to put it. And you can have the excuses of quarterback carousels, but at some point, man, you've got to be the guy to take charge of that. You went and spent the money on Carson Wentz. You went and spent the money on Matt Ryan. Like, at some point, you have to hold the accountability, because he's just sort of gone, yep, we're 8-9 again. Woohoo! We've lost out on the playoffs by one game again. Yes, that's okay. And I think I don't want to put you on the spot of whether you're Ballard in, Ballard out, who should go, blah blah blah. But do you think he's losing his credit very quickly with what he built up in the early years of his career as the Colts GM?
Yes-ish. I mean, again, time is time, like 9 years, whatever it may be. And it was the roster, flipping the roster and getting the trenches both secured. The immediate DeForest Buckner move, the immediate Quentin Nelson draft pick, like what he did out the gates to raise the floor of this team was very good. But as time goes on, punted on quarterback. Matt Ryan should have never happened. No over disrespect, but Matt Ryan has 19 million reasons why. He doesn't give a shit what I say on this show about his tenure with the Indianapolis Colts. That one was ridiculous. There was no plan B. Wentz, I guess, was enough. But you got to look at Ballard, too, in head coaching decisions. Like, Steichen paid off last year. Steichen, this year. And then Steichen, if he pulls it off, will have bailed Chris Ballard out, because, we got left at the altar with Josh McDaniels. Looked terrible. That was my biggest thing going into 2023 was I wanted Jim Harbaugh. I wanted, full control for him to have with the roster, whatever. But if we were going to keep Ballard, the blueprint was get an offensive type head coach, although I wouldn't have minded Raheem Morris, but, he's looking okay too. But that has to be evaluated too with Chris Ballard's tenure. Who is the quarterback decisions? Who is the coach decisions? How have we looked on a national, stage? And it just has fallen through, every time, unfortunately. So again, a lot's forgiven if we get in the playoffs and then we look at next year and he's able to acquire, but you can't lie to the fan base and say this is like an all in or all we do is try and win around here. And it's not the case.
Yeah. we like our guys. I think that's my favorite one.
Yeah.
We like our guys. So moving on a little bit and looking ahead. Okay, best case scenario for the Colts and the Colts Nation this year is we're picking the late 20s, early to mid 20s. I'll say is the best case scenario for Colts fans this year.
Best case is 32, but yeah.
Yeah. Worst case, we're picking at 15 again. I could see it already. But last year's draft, and I do want to make this like I am definitely not so upset that we got Latu. For me, he's been good. Again, another player who can see absolute raw talent with. Hopefully, get some decent training in and refines them skills of his. But man, I just wanted us to be aggressive and go and get Brock Bowers. That was my call. We're screaming for a tight end ever since Jack Doyle stepped down, and we're sort of paying the price this year.
Yeah, especially at tight end. I was fine with Bowers fell to us. Trading up for him, I wasn't the biggest fan of. Again, knowing what I know now, like if we all knew what we knew now, like yeah, Bowers. I did want the number 6, either Nate. Well, I wanted Harrison Jr. Everyone wanted Harrison Jr.
Yeah.
It sounds like the Chargers weren't even, the Giants were there to play ball though. So it'll never come out what the actual pick compensation was to try and move from 15 to 6. But if we did get a Rome, a Dunze, or Malik Neighbors, who's more pro ready, I think people say it was going to be a Dunze if we were up there, but I don't know if it was Neighbors. That's a great pick. Like he's the one bright spot of the Giants team right now. So I wanted pass catcher. I've come to love Latu though. Met him at training camp. Liked a few of my tweets. Very nice guy, and love his energy. It's insane. That guy never has it off. Like they had their most grueling, gross practice on a Tuesday morning for training camp, and he just came right up to me and my buddy and just was like chatting to everybody down the line. I was like, oh, Latu, you're the man. But no, in terms of draft, like obviously my saying is fuck the draft. We're picking 32. We don't talk about the draft in season. But since I am a gracious guest on your great show, I mean, you got to go tight end, corner, and running back, I think, in that order. Where they get picked, I know I want one of those like fun like scat backs like everybody else has. Like I love Taylor, but you need the pass catching upgrade from Goodson, because no offense to Goodson, there's also been gracious with his time on social media, but I can point to 3 balls that were right in his hands that our trajectory of our whole organization would be in completely different circumstances. So while I'm not looking forward to it, it is a realistic conversation piece to address. So yeah, would love tight end. I mean, the ball's been absolutely dropped. Jelani too, counting on him was such a ruse. Like I still think he has talent. I'm happy we picked him, but he was like a 3rd round guy and he hasn't seen the field much. And you wonder too about the Ballard evaluation as well. Like is he overly picking athletes instead of football players? Like some of the best like raw athletes are good at top end speed, like doing this, but also, once they get to sprinting, maybe a hammy, gets pulled more often than not. Whereas, like Aiden Hutchinson wasn't necessarily the, it's kind of a bad example because he's a number 2 pick, but he wasn't the like freak athlete. He was just all motor, go get. And I think that trend being bucked with Latu was interesting and good too. But again, knowing Latu now, seeing him on our team, I'm happy. Pass catcher would have been my preference for sure.
Yeah, like I say, no hate towards Latu. I think like him falling to us at 15 is one of the best case scenarios for not having to be aggressive and still getting your guy. It's like I say, the draft, it's an unknown lottery, right? You can pick up a Tom Brady in the last round, or you can pick up an Andrew Luck at pick 1. It just, you don't know how life is going to work out. for me, I desperately need a name on defense and offense, a star name. We was on a previous show with Nathan. We was having this conversation of who is the star name on defense. It's Buckner. Okay, he's getting older. So obviously now we have Latu on the line, but then who's the guy who's going to cause some fear in that secondary? I like the progression of Jalen Jones and Nick Cross and the way they're getting on. But again, ever since it's the marketability, that's not even a real word, but the maniac, right? It instantly causes this fear. Like you're a child as it sounds, you're Dak Prescott going up against the Colts and the maniac on defense. You're like, okay, I'm not throwing towards the middle of the field.
Yeah.
I can no longer run with the ball because he's going to punch it out. And I just think we've been missing that. And on the offensive side of the ball, for me, like I say, the tight end room, you never want to write guys off because these are guys who are putting their body on the line, right? These are guys who have worked their absolute arse off and they are the 1% of the 1% that get to the league. And injuries are so unfortunate. And like you say, I was rooting for Jelani Woods to really be something, to really have a breakout year, and then just that happens. You're like, oh, man, come on. Yeah. So yeah, I'd love tight end, but that's a long way away. Let's rewind it because some important news for you, I guess, being an Indiana Hoosier. Your guys just made the college football playoffs, ranked 10. Me being I will say I know of the Indiana Hoosiers. I relate to them because I'm a Colts fan. It's probably the only connection I've got to them. And I know they play in red. I couldn't, and I know Kurt Signetti. Hopefully, I pronounced that right.
Yeah.
But these guys, you've obviously followed them for a long time. It seemed like a while ago they was in no man's land, a bit of a swamp heap, and now, big Signetti. He's got the place rocking. He's got the guys rolling. How's it going?
Yeah, well, yeah. Thanks for bringing it up. Shout out D-line coach of the Indiana Hoosiers, Pat Kuntz. He was at the he had a training camp invite as a defensive lineman in the 2009 training camp, so the McAfee draft class. And super nice guy, follows me. Got his autograph too at the spring football game. But no, it's a great story. I'm sure you footy fans over there in the UK can relate to some of these underdogs, perpetual, even when they're good, they're not great teams, middle of the pack, lower of the pack. Finally when they get something rolling like we did in 2020, our quarterback got hurt. We could never slay the big dragon. Even this year, with Ohio State, we couldn't quite slay the big dragon, but with the extended playoff, it's fun times to be an Indiana sports fan. And they're playing Notre Dame. So Notre Dame too, obviously historical college football program. So it really is David versus Goliath in those terms. Don't tell Signetti I said that though, because he really exudes the confidence to get everyone to go play. And it's a great, saying or a project in life too, because he's from, pretty much a championship League 2, program, works his way up to that championship league, type program with JMU. And then he pulls, I think it was 22 players and about half of them are starters to the Power 5 Premier League, Indiana Hoosiers, bottom, trying to avoid relegation. I think we were picked either last, second to last. And then all of a sudden we're competing, Leicester City type, eliteness. So we're able to, do that. And it's just been fun to be, see that. But it's crazy because there's never been this buzz. There's never been anything like this. And I don't know. I'm just as shocked as everyone, I think, in the States to see ESPN talk about my favorite college football team, who they've maybe talked about a few times when we got absolutely steamrolled by the big guys like Michigan, Ohio State that we had to play every year. But yeah, fun times in Indiana for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, for those watching who maybe don't know, and again, you're the fan, so jump in if I'm wrong at any point. But Kurt Signetti, like you say, he's taken over from JMU. Obviously, college football, you have your different tiers, if that's right to say. Like you say, it's the big guys, the next, and then the smaller schools, D2, I guess, is the right way of putting it, like you say. So he just sort of explodes out of nowhere. Comes to, like you say, a program that's a bit stuck in the mud, a bit going backwards. Like, where do we go from here? I guess a lot of funding and stuff and all that's involved with how much do we actually spend on our program now, because they're a bit rubbish at the time. Then you go on this amazing run, right? Was it 9-0, 10-0, something like that?
Yeah, 9-0, and then number 2 Ohio State unfortunately beat us, and then we beat our rival at the end of the year.
Yeah, but to say you lose to Ohio State is probably the equivalent of, I don't know,
the Lions.
They're the big boys, right? They're the Man Cities, the Chelseas, and then you've got Indiana, who are like just fighting for survival, and then just go, no, we're not here to fight for survival. We're here to come and take your crown, which I think is fantastic by Signetti, and obviously fantastic for the state of Indiana. Also, speaking of college football, I suppose the biggest news aside of that is our old friend Andrew Luck is now is it sporting director at USC?
Essentially, so he'll be like the general manager. So a lot of like the NIL, name, image, and likeness, extra cash the college players get now. He's like overseeing that process for Stanford.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems like a smart appointment, right? Andrew Luck, we know as the superstar QB, but he's also very savvy, very intelligent, and is very into other things other than football, which might not be important to a football fan, but to an athlete who's 16, 17, who could potentially lose his job within a year. All of a sudden, when you have someone with the caliber of Andrew Luck, who's made you look after your image, your money, it doesn't mean you're kicked out, essentially.
Right. Yeah. It's it took me a while to get over it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not. There's always a little part where it's like, could he come back? He could.
He still could.
Yeah, he still could. But no, you're exactly right. Like, again, all of what happened in the past aside, seeing him, not being that perpetual injury rehab, and then being away for a few years, coming back to the light, immediately making, his public rounds with local media when I think it was part of Chuck Pagano's cancer awareness type charity. So that was his real step back in. That kind of got the wheels turning, like, he'll probably do something. Like, he's a high profile guy, has laid low for a while, and then now going back to Stanford. So like you said, it's good to see these players have an outlet after football. I wish it wasn't our all-pro quarterback finding out his intelligence and using it to that effect, but also to who are we? Millions and millions of dollars. I get it, but if you really do go to your job, are starting to do good, and then everything gets taken away from you time after time, and you got to build yourself back up while having a baby on the way, while having a new wife. That's mental torture that I don't wish on anyone. So for him to get out of that and find his way now and still be good enough with the Colts, I don't think the relationship will ever be peachy. I do think he'll make the Ring of Honor one day. I do. But I still wouldn't put him in any time in the next 4 or 5 years minimum.
Yeah, I mean, hypothetical situation before we talk about our last few things, but just very hypothetical for you here. But let's say for the Colts, it doesn't work out the next couple of years, and we need a new GM. I'm just saying, so it could be Andrew, and we need a new quarterback. There's a young man currently going through college who could come to Indy. I'm joking, but no, you never know. Worst case scenario, Richardson doesn't work out. We're picking number one, and there you go. You got yourself Arch Manning, or Archie Manning, I should say. But no, I suppose a big talking point of the last game we played was the re-pickup of Big Glowinski. What do you think about that? Obviously, you're always the first person to tweet all this this player, ex-player who played one game for the Colts in 1982 and is etc. etc. You always know these obscure facts about these players. I'm like, God damn, man, when did you get the time to find that out?
Lifelong fandom, man. It's great. Yeah, just searching Wikipedias. I don't know, being bored in bed late at night. I probably shouldn't admit that. I should be like, oh, I'm doing cool stuff. Home improvement. Fixing up the truck now. No, very gracious of you to say that though, with the knowledge. But yeah, I like Dalton Tucker. Been very kind to me. Good, story, undrafted. Remember the whole Colts' string until the last few years of having an undrafted player on the roster. Dalton Tucker was that guy, undrafted rookie on the roster, was able to get him, pushed. Unfortunately, Fry's getting hurt. The whole Bortolini, Kelly injuries too. Goncalves having to do spot starts. He could have been an option to be a guard. So bringing in Glowinski, a guy a guy who knows Ryan Kelly, Braden Smith, Raymond and Big Q very well. That comfortability too. I think it gets missed. I can't remember who was talking about it, but I've heard before. It's like you wouldn't think that the O-line needs that sort of chemistry like a quarterback and wide receiver do, and they probably don't need it to that extent. But they need to be able to freely communicate and know, like, if something unexpected happens, like this guy's rushing whatever, is Smith picking him up? And they've had reps together for years, fortunately. So seemed like a no-brainer to put him in. Again, typical Ballard. We should have done this instead of hold on to, a young rookie. Although, again, shout out Dalton Tucker. Follows me on Twitter. So shout out Dalton Tucker for sure. But a change needed to be made. Glowinski's really good. Hey, Bortolini will be back soon. Kelly will be back soon. Play whoever's the hot hand there. I like that we developed Goncalves. I thought Goncalves was solid. Enough. And Bernard Ryman being back too, where Ryman has proven, dare I say, a top 12 left tackle, and only ascending, still football young. So, good decision. We know where Ballard likes to play, and it is like in the waiver wire, the free agency, low level type guys. But hey, this one paid off, and it was overdue.
Yeah. So just you brought something earlier in the show about the Lucas Oil Stadium. I mean, definitely on TV, it's not felt like home this year. For you as a fan in a stadium, in saying that, it just crushes it. When you compare this to Anthony Richardson's first game 2023, and he's running in, and it's just electric, and everyone's off the feet too. It seems like every game's an away game this year.
Yeah, I mean, so this city was built to host sporting events. Like, part of the deal of getting the Colts here from Baltimore was that we would be this hub for sports, and that's proven. We had the Combine before the Colts were even a very relevant franchise in Indianapolis. Like, we were able to bring in numerous Super Bowls, Final Fours for years. Like, this city really made a conscious effort in the early 80s how to plan around sports. So other teams coming here easily, being able to get cheaper, apartments, housing, and a very favorable price on their ticket instead of going to some of these other markets. It's just part of the beast there. So that part aside, you got to win games to get people in seats. Like, it's just that simple. Like, look at Indiana football, one of the lowest, attended game. Like, I can count on one hand when I was in college, one finger when I was in college, when that place was full. And it was when we were playing number 1 Ohio State. And that's where our fan base showed out, because we were having a pretty good year. And I think that was 16 before we ended up going 500, but that's beside the point. And everyone showed out. Everyone shows out for the big games, but Lions fans are a drive away. Pittsburgh always travels. But the worst by far was the Lions. Buffalo was pretty bad. Dolphins even. I'm like, guys, Richardson's back, and we're selling our tickets to the Dolphins fans. Like, they were probably 20-ish%, and that's too many. But Bears, Steelers in the 35-ish% range. Buffalo 40. Detroit, I don't even want to say it was above 50, but it very well could have been. It was brutal. But luckily, the rest of the stretch, Tennessee and Jacksonville. Tennessee doesn't have any real fans, and neither does Jacksonville. So let's see them show up. They don't usually show up on these games in Indy, and hopefully we're playing for something. Beat the Broncos. Everybody's back, man. But a lot of season ticket holders did sell after that Monday announcement that Flacco would be the quarterback still after that for the Jets game. So I did see a lot of people sell. Did it weigh in? I think you gave me a shout out. Thank you for that on one of your shows. Like Colts fan Cole tweeted, like season ticket renewals are back. Maybe that's the reason they put Anthony Richardson back in. And it's like, it is a business at the end of the day. Irsay isn't one of these mega billionaires who can buy everything. He's still a billionaire with a capital B. He needs to overly spend to make our team, fill all of our team's holes. But it is a business, and hopefully that pisses them off that fans are making money by selling them to opposing fans. But I didn't blame fans for selling after the Flacco announcement for the Jets game on that Monday. But now it's time, come back home. We're winning again. Please beat Denver, and then everyone show out for Tennessee and Jacksonville. And like I always say, winning cures it all. So we keep winning. Asses will be back in seats, and they'll be wearing blue.
Yeah, like you say, winning can definitely paper over a lot of cracks. So one quick question about the off-field stuff, and then just a couple of end of the show questions. You might have seen it, but I want to get her name right now. I believe it's Carly Ursay, who's Jim's oldest. She seemed to be on the sideline behind Shane Steichen at points this season. We've obviously Jim is getting on in age, and his health is up and down, which obviously you never want to make a judgment on anyone's health or say they're in a bad health condition. But do you think at some point he's got to maybe look at stepping back from being the owner, because being the owner of an NFL team it's not an easy day-to-day job.
Yeah, no, good question. So Carly Ursay has been that kind of shadowing role for a while now. Exact date, I'm not sure, but you'll see her at training camp all the time with a notepad, headset on to hear the play calls. So she knows football, or continuing to learn the X's and O's more so about football. His other daughter, whose name's escaping me, doesn't really have much to do with it. I think more front office-y stuff, but nothing like the X's and O's like Carly. And then Kaylin Ursay Jackson. She is very much the community philanthropic speaking role. So if they divide it up correctly, and these women who I fully believe had the best education, went to college, did their resume speaks for themselves. I'm sure I trust them, but there will always be the conversation when you break up, an owner who's been there in the family, a lot of money that was unimaginable when Robert Ursay had the team in Baltimore way back when. I think he traded. Oh, I need to look it up before spreading misinformation. I think he traded the Rams he bought the Rams and traded them for Baltimore, I believe. Let me look that up. I'll fact check that, get it to you before the end of the show. But that being said, so much money now that was unimaginable back then. But I think Ursay has a place, and I think he's actually done a really good job this year of not really inserting himself more. Now, is it because of the health scare? Maybe. Did he have a big hand in the benching? Maybe. But he will take corrective action at times, like we saw in 2022, and I'm happy with that. What we don't need is him live on air, talking into the oblivion, which some of it's fun, come kind of the fun interviews. Come on the Colts Fan Cole show. Love to have you, Mr. Ursay. We'll keep it fun. We'll keep it light. But when he starts to talk about these really in-depth and big topics and franchise pillars, you just kind of grit your teeth and listen to what he has to say. So I want him around. I hope he lives a long life. Reality is, I think the daughters are going to step up. And then I want to think it stays in the Ursays, but you never know with that much money flying around. And please, God, stay in Indianapolis, or I don't even want to think what could happen to me.
Yeah, it's scary, right? Because predominantly as a football soccer fan, that the relocation thing, it doesn't happen.
Right.
It just doesn't happen. It's not a thing. It's completely alien to us European soccer fans that teams can just up and move. I mean, I read the book about a Colts book about the Colts moving from Baltimore to Indianapolis, and I'm not going to get into it now because, like I say, that's a whole other 2-hour podcast you could do. But it just seems crazy that you could trade teams. You can trade teams. You can just move city. Yes, but I don't think it'll ever get that serious, scary for the Colts because, like we say, it's built for lasting. It's built for combines. The Big Ten championship, I believe they held this year.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, like you say. So, end of the season and general chit chat now.
I will. Sorry, we did trade the Rams for 1972. Robert Irsay traded the Rams, bought the Rams, traded them for Baltimore, and so it probably wasn't even much more than thousands of dollars, if that. 1972, $19 million, and now we're worth probably $3-4 billion on the open market.
It's I mean, money in sports is a crazy world, but that just seems mental to me that you could go just like you're playing Madden. Yeah, you can have my team. I'll have yours. Sack it.
Yeah,
I just lost in a game of poker.
Yeah.
Oh no, what did they get? The Baltimore Colts. God. But so the great thing about having the latest bye week in the NFL is you get to this. You're still in the race. You get to your bye week. Forget about the rest of the season. You are still in the race. Everything's looking forward. There's no, we've had our bye week and we can't catch up now. It's all there for the taking. 4 games. Every game seems to be a win and in sort of situation. We need to start with the first building block, and that's beating the Broncos. Before we get on to the Jags and the Titans, what do you think? How do you think this game plans out? I mean, you don't need to break it down play by play, but just a 60-second recap of this game.
Sure. First of all, the bye week, you're exactly right. I think it came at the perfect time, and we sorted a lot of BS out. The McAfee, Zaire stuff got taken care of with Zaire, taking atonement the other week, although he shouldn't have, but that's a whole nother conversation. The quarterback switch, getting Anthony to play his best ball now. If you would have told us before the season, you wake up from your nap, hibernation, whatever, from the summer, you're dropped onto this December 8th, and you're like, Anthony Richardson led 2 game-winning drives the last 3 weeks, and we play the Broncos, who were projected to not be very good, but if we beat the Broncos, we can make the playoffs, with the rest of the schedule being, pretty light. Every Colts fan in the world would have signed up for that. So the fact that we're in this point, very, very grateful that the bye week came at this time, because it does give people, a chance to really decompress, get with their families for this final, month push, and they can put everything they possibly can into this, and they're not carrying baggage from the last, few months of just pure, chaos from the outside, inside. Sounds like it was kind of chaos too. That being said, Broncos game, make Bo Nix look like a rookie. Gus, man. Gus, you're listening to this. He's good at short passing. Don't just allow him to short pass you to death. I get the cover 3. I get not wanting people to go deep. You got to mix in some stuff to fool him with the underneath stuff. And that does not include dropping Kwity Paye into coverage. So they're beatable. They had the absolute barn. What a game that was. The Browns game the other week on a Thursday night. And they have a bye week too, though. So hopefully our guys, just have that much more need for it. We're later in the regime. They don't have less to prove. Hungry dog runs faster. And then, of course, as I said at the top of the show, probably the middle of the show, probably in my sleep at night, all roads lead to Anthony Richardson. It's all about his performance. Play well, avoid the sack, which he's been doing spectacular of. Take the check downs when they're there, but also don't be afraid to escape the pocket. Make the insane plays you can, and keep running him. I get why we didn't run him as much early in the season. I kind of understand saving, him, Taylor, their legs a little bit, but now it is absolute pedal to the metal. You can't take any plays off. Steichen, you got to throw whatever you have and play hat-on-hat football. O-line, though, getting healthy at the right time, too, could be a key for us here.
Yeah, and it summed it up perfectly, really. Then moving on, the Titans. I'm sure there's another game in here I'm missing somewhere, but
nope. Yep, Titans after Denver. That's a home game. 3 days before Christmas, 22nd. Yeah, I think Levis might have got hurt today. So we're playing the Titans. Like, you got to win it. We probably will, but it's a division opponent. They have nothing to lose, really. So they're going to go for it. I don't think teams really quit on younger coaches too. Like, I'm sure we'll get to the Jags game, but I can go ahead and mention it here. Doug Peterson all but fired. So the end of the season, hopefully they just don't care. And then the Giants, I'm not sure that score, but they were looking decent, I think. They ended up losing 14-11, but kept it close against a below average Saints team. So they're not trash. But of those three, most worried about Jacksonville just because of historical bullshittery, I guess.
Yeah, so I'll end with Jacksonville then. So we could be winning in against Mac Jones and the Jacksonville Jaguars. If you told me that sentence in whenever he got drafted, I'd be like, what on earth has gone on? But no, just this is, if we're in the position to go into the playoffs when we come into that Jacksonville game, we need to take the next step. We need to make that hurdle. We need to get past that sort of blocker that we've got, that mental blocker. I'm not a big believer in curses, bogey teams, streaks, whatever. I think it's a big mental thing that goes on that people buy into. It's crazy. But I just want to talk maybe a little bit about the hit on Trevor Lawrence. It's obviously been a massive talking point in the league. And I was saying to Nathan on our show on Thursday that I think the way DeMeco's Ryans has come out is just horrible, and I'm surprised he hasn't got suspended for what he said essentially saying it was okay to hit him. Like, no, read the room. Someone's just been seriously hurt and you're saying that was okay. Mate, no, read the room. Think about what you're going to say before you say it. But it brings up the bigger picture. I don't think it was a fake slide by any means or a late slide by any means. It was just a damn right dirty hit. But then we're talking about late slides now because of this. And with someone with more exposure to the game, is this something that we can stop this fake slide, pretending to run out of bounds and then getting an extra yard? Or is this the defensive plays just have to be better?
It's tough. Like, I mean, the slides too, obviously they handled it, bad. Ryans, don't say that. I do. And Aziz, doesn't have the best track record of, dirty plays or whatever. All that being said, if it was one of our guys, I could be like, hey, look, it's sliding, going down, but the follow through, the shoulder, like, that's just, he was sliding, going down. I had a crazy idea. I was like, why not just like do like a, fair catch almost? Like, it just blows the play dead. Like, you're not penalized if you're a defender to do it, but that way the quarterback knows he's going to get hit, can brace for it, or can just do that real quick, brace for it, and then just get wrapped up. But also, and that's like such a indefensible or confusable. That's not a word.
Yeah, I know
But
what
way
you're saying.
to do it, the fair catch too, over the head, and no one would feign, because then you can kind of do whatever move, and it's not like Richardson or Lamar doing something where they're actually kind of like ducking, a certain way to get the defender to think they're going this way, and then they're going to power through. Because how sucky would it be if one of our favorite players is like gonna do a move and they think he's sliding or faking a slide, and it's a flag. So eliminating any confusion out the game, I'm all for. But it is all about quarterback safety. Like this year, thankfully, has been way better. But last year, I mean, hell, we started, Garner. We had to start Garner the whole year, pretty much, and that's unfortunate. Not comparable at all, but a lot of teams were without their quarterback, and it's a less entertaining product for the fans in NFL. So keep the quarterbacks healthy, but also you can't, take away key pillars of what football is. But let's think outside the box for some of these things too.
Yeah.
Like, let's not just be like, oh, we got to eliminate sliding now. You can't. And now it's like, well, no, you can do different things. Like, I don't know. It's the same overcorrection with the probably unpopular now, because I think it's been better metrics or whatever, entertainment value. But the kickoff rule, I'm like, I don't know. I like seeing everyone run all there at once. That's football to me. I'm not. I'm Colts fan, not Cole. Scheme innovator or anything. At the end of the day, I'm just a football fan. But some of these things overblown. Hip drop tackle, outrageous too. And I don't think I've seen that even called this year.
Yeah. So I want to end with this, and like I say, before we end the show, Cole, thank you for coming on. It means a lot. We are a community, and a global community at that. I've spoken to Colts fans all over the world. It's been amazing. For those watching, for those who have been watching, Cole, you can find. Is it just Extra on, or are you on other platforms? Or
yeah, TikTok. I'll do second most, I think. So for I do opening old Colts, so I'll open a random artifact, I call it, and give a score prediction before the games too. Some other stuff on there, fun videos, but mostly Twitter.
Thanks. Yeah, so please go and check them out. Thanks. Join in with the conversations. Even if you don't want to join in, people can message you in these spaces, and if they're not confident on microphones and speaking, it's been excellent. But the last thing, if we go on to win the Super Bowl, could this be the most polarizing? Could this be the most polarizing team, in the sense that the offense is amazing, the defense is to win it?
Yeah, only because of like the historic. I want it. Like, believe me, I still think we can ratchet it up. We can be good. I just worry when we run into the Mahomes, Allens, Lamars, what the realistic likelihood of containing those offenses enough with a young quarterback. But all that being said, we make the playoffs. We're for real. We prove we're for real. Can attract free agents. But I mean, offensively too, the consistency. Like, we need to have done better against the Lions. I would have liked a touchdown. Ogletree should have caught that one too. But putting up some more points against the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl would have been nice. Defensively too, we weren't great, but I don't think we were terrible that game. But then too, like we talked about early in the year with some winnable games, the Packers especially, like, you got to figure out how to stop the run, which we were really good at last year, even, with a, middle of the road season. So, I honestly think it wouldn't be that crazy in terms of polar opposites, only because of the inconsistency of both sides.
Yeah, I get exactly what you're saying. And just, I suppose, because I've got you, and last question, one player this year who has been your player, for me, Josh Downs. Wow, this kid, I love him. But for you, who's the one player this year?
Grant Stewart. That's always Grant Stewart,
baby.
Yeah. I love Grant Stewart. I mean, absolute Tasmanian devil. Special teams, I think it was like a sixth or seventh round pick swap with Tampa. We got him here. Immediate special teams ace. And then, EJ, I think, missed a game earlier. Carlisle's our rookie. Grant's not going to be the coverage guy, but also it's a contract year. He loves football. His origin story is amazing. Go check it out. I think Kiefer wrote it on The Athletic. And he plays a million miles a second every single play. Ball of energy, hyping up the guys. Great all-around person too. He's my favorite to root for. In terms of X factor offensively, I think Bordolini really gets a nod too. Like he kind of was assumed almost to be the heir apparent, but it's kind of awkward because Ryan Kelly, the first rounder, all the stuff. He's with the done with the community, the team. So to just kind of have to step in that role, it's like, well, big shoes to fill. And then he did. And now there's genuine talk of if both are healthy, who do you start? And it may be, they probably would go with Kelly, but there's an argument to be had with Bordolini. And to show that in year one, when we're, likely not going to resign Ryan Kelly from all, comments and finger pointing that we saw early in the year, that's great to have found your center like that in the mid round. So Bordolini and Stewart definitely good over performers for us this year.
Excellent. Well, like I say, Cole, thanks for joining us on the UK Colts Fan Show. Anyone who wants to, go and find Cole after every game, in between every game, and seemingly every day on the socials. Growing the Colts community. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Like and subscribe, and see you all after the Colts beat the Broncos 42-0.